This is the truth most gaming media will never say. Hideo Kojima, gaming's sweetheart, he didn't invent creative brilliance. He recycled it, to be kind. What the internet calls mastery, what his fans called visionary storytelling, is mostly borrowed, remixed, and repackaged from Hollywood, sci-fi, war films, and blockbuster tropes dressed up like genius. By the end of this video, you're going to wonder, how did Hideo Kojima go from unique auteur to the guy who just lifted cinema, slapped it into a video game, and called it his own? Buckle up, because this is unfiltered. Hideo Kojima is gaming's copycat king. Let's start where Kojima's quote-unquote original reputation supposedly begins. Snatcher. Critics hype this as a groundbreaking cyberpunk game. But look closely. This isn't just homage. This is Blade Runner in playable form, with near identical cyberpunk existential beats, sinuous android existential dread, and gritty noir worlds. Multiple sources confirm Snatcher's heavy sci-fi film influences, including Blade Runner, The Thing, Invasion of the Body Snatchers, The Terminator, and even animes like Akira. You can't call that inspired by. The narrative implant surgery is clear. Next is visuals. Snake. Solid Snake. He is literally Snake Plissken. The iconic Solid Snake that we all love, his codename was drawn directly from Snake Plissken, the protagonist of Escape from New York. Kojima even doubled down on this in later games. Snake's alias is Plissken in Metal Gear Solid 2. Is that a wink? No. That is literally the same reference, not an original idea in thought. And that's not all. What is Snake's real name? What about his iconic bandana? His gruff, survivalist, man on a mission vibe that are traced back to movies like 2001, Space Odyssey, and The Deer Hunter. At this point, it's almost parody to call him Snake. Put an eye patch on him and define stealth as infiltrate hostile territory. And you've got the exact template from Escape from New York used in 1981. What about the Metal Gear motifs versus the movie motifs? Well, across Metal Gear's history, Kojima himself admits, and documented sources show, that famous character moments and an entire stealth concept were drawn directly from movies. Psycho Mantis, his psychic gimmick, was inspired by the film The Fury, down to the mind-bending trope and eerie confrontation. Sniper Wolf's iconic scene, it echoes Full Metal Jacket. Hal, or Otacon, his name is lifted from 2001 A Space Odyssey's Hal and filmmaker Roland Emmerich. The stealth mechanic itself, Kojima has said it comes from The Great Escape and The Guns of Navarone. James Bond films shaped Metal Gear Solid 3's introduction with espionage flair lifted straight from 007. This is not just subtle influence, guys. This is a broader swath of cinematic DNA placed directly into a franchise, and then he called it Metal Gear. If you think that's just, well, a couple of references and coincidences, well, here is not even an exhaustive list of films that he has publicly acknowledged or documented influences. Let's call them influences because, I don't want to get sued. But of his games, structure, visuals, or themes. And here's just a small list. The films that he has directly, quote unquote, influenced from is The Great Escape, Goldfinger, 2001: A Space Odyssey, Planet of the Apes, Dawn of the Dead, Predator, Die Hard, Heat, Black Hawk Down, Children of Men, Full Metal Jacket, Escape from New York, just to name a handful. That is dozens of iconic movies. This is not obscure stuff. These are major studio films with huge cultural footprints. Nothing wrong with loving movies, guys, but Kojima's games don't reference them, they reproduce them. Let's fast forward then to one of the more modern takes. Let's forward from Metal Gear and Kojima's obsession with Hollywood getting even more blatant. Kojima literally casts movie actors now over career voice actors. Norman Reedus, known as Daryl from The Walking Dead, Lea Seydoux, Mads Mikkelsen, Guillermo del Toro, and more. At one point, he was reportedly considering Keanu Reeves for Death Stranding before choosing Mads instead. His cast choices, they aren't about performance in games. It's about his obsession with Hollywood presence. If your creative philosophy is make my games feel like a movie, well, this is how you execute. Well, let's just hire famous faces first. Worry about the playability later. Kojima himself admits that all of his work ends up feeling somewhat like a movie because he, quote, grew up on films and soaked up cinematic language like DNA. But here's the reality. If a young game developer in 2026 copies enough Hollywood beats into a game and surrounds them with long cutscenes, the press is going to say, well, holy crap, that's cinematic brilliance. Well, yeah, of course it is. Because it was already cinematic brilliance before, and all he did was make it in CG. Let's computerize it. If someone did that with the Super Mario Brothers mechanics with like movie logic, they'd be labeled a derivative, uninspired mess. Kojima's real quote-unquote originality isn't generating new ideas. It's being voracious about cinematic consumption and then turning those scenes into a game. Honestly, that's not genius. That's cinephilia with budget access. He got away with this in the 80s when the gaming scene was fairly unregulated, and even into the mid-90s. Let's ask it plainly. At what point does influence cross the line into creative identity theft? Kojima doesn't just nod at movies. He builds entire games around them. Don't believe me? Snake isn't just inspired by Pliskin, he is Pliskin in game form. Stealth gameplay isn't just influence, it's inherited directly from already existing film stealth tropes. Death Stranding isn't a new genre, it's a long Hollywood style drama with travel missions tacked onto it. Instead of innovating, Hideo Kojima's entire career's roadmap is let me find the coolest element from a film, make them into games, and then celebrate them as original. That's not altruism. That's selective, quote, remixing on a blockbuster budget. Here's the kicker. If a Western studio did this today, let's say if Ubisoft or EA built open worlds around movie references and Hollywood actors, fans would call it uninspired, unoriginal, derivative, or corporate BS. But somehow, Kojima gets the opposite label. Visionary, pioneer, genius. That's not neutral analysis. That's nostalgia and myth making strung together by hype machines. So, here's the question. What original idea has Hideo Kojima actually invented that wasn't already a Hollywood staple, a sci-fi trope, or borrowed film element? Please give names, give examples. Don't say innovative storytelling. Name the original concept. Because when you strip away the cinematic padding, the straight up cutscene to cutscene, what's left might just be Hollywood stitched with a joystick input. But by all means, drop it in the comments. Let's see who actually defends the thesis of pure originality. As always, I want to thank you for joining me here on the channel. Like, share, leave a comment, subscribe if you haven't, and I will catch you all in the next video.